Good morning YouTube and welcome back to our channel. My name is Amanda and we're going to go ahead and do a couple of morning chores. We're going to go out and let the goats out and we'll come back in and we'll probably do some transplanting because I've got some seeds that are ready to be transplanted into the trays. So let's go let the goats out of their pen. Good morning, goats. Good morning, girls. There you are. All right. And the chickens. Good morning. They say freedom. So the goats that we have are Nigerian dwarfs, which are a miniature dairy breed, and they can provide us with milk and with babies, which will provide some supplemental income. Let's get out of here since the wind is starting to blow. But the sale of the babies can then actually give us a little bit of supplemental income. I'm not saying that we're going to make any sort of a profit off of it, but they might help pay for the feed since we only do have 2 goats and they can only produce so many babies in a year. But Jane did really well producing milk for us because we were unable to get Betsy pregnant last year. She was bred twice and just didn't take, and she's been bred twice this year, and actually we have blood samples at the lab right now to test and see if she's pregnant because she's about 45 days or so since she was last bred. And so we'll hopefully find out tomorrow what the status is of her pregnancy. But now we've let the goats out, we moved their hay, and we can come inside now and we can do our transplanting, which is super exciting. Okay, so for our transplanting, what we first need to do is fill our pods with the soil and put them in our tray. So what I do is, since I'm in my house and it's cold outside, I just have my bag of soil and I'm going to dump it into this tote and mix it with some water out of the bucket so that it's damp. And then I'm going to just fill all these cups and we'll see kind of how many I end up with. I didn't count out the cups, so hopefully I brought enough to fill out the trays, but then we can transplant some of our little plant starts. So what I'm doing at this point is, before I even add in the dirt, I'm just breaking up all the large clumps because it's just going to make it easier for myself when I'm mixing in the water. So break up all the really large chunks, you know, the big ones. There were a couple in here that were really big. And it's also just another excuse to get my hands dirty. And I'm also, I guess, just a tiny touch of OCD. So it's like, it must all be smooth, which probably isn't super healthy. So breaking up all the big clumps of soil in here. Okay. So now I'm going to take my bucket of water, and I only have this about half full because I didn't want to spill it in the house. And I'll probably go ahead and dump everything that's in here just because it is a full bag of soil. And then I just just going to stir it in just a little bit. And it's not going to make the soil like really wet, but it's going to help it not be quite so dry either. And it's going to clump up a little bit, which I know I just smoothed it, but it's different clumping than the solid chunks we were breaking up before. Okay. So now our soil is nice and mixed up. It's a little bit damp. It's not wet, it's damp. so that we can get the soil in the containers, but it's not so fluffy that as soon as you add water into it, it's not going to absorb it, or it's not going to suddenly, oh, I only have half a container of soil, because all that air will get compressed out. So now we have all of our cups, we have our tray, and we will start filling these up. And we'll start filling these up with the soil. Now I just kind of give them a little shake and just like a little pat on the top, just to try and get some of those air pockets out, but not pressing it down so it's not compacted. We're just gonna keep on going until we fill the tray. One way that I actually prefer to irrigate these trays when they are all planted up and full is, instead of watering from above, which since it's in my house, it has a potential to make a mess and dribble all over the floor from a watering can, what I'll actually do is I'll pull one of the pods out of the corner and I'll just fill the tray with some water, maybe a ½ inch deep. And just through osmosis, the soil that's in the pods, because it's not all the way dry before I water, it will pull that water up from the bottom of the tray and water the plants without me getting a big mess spilled everywhere. And I'll do some surface watering, but like at this point with the seeds, it's just easier to use like a spray bottle, just to allow the soil not to be too disturbed. So that you're not washing away any seeds and you're not going to overflow and lose any of your soil. So that's been a method that's really been working for me the last few times that I've done this. And you can also do, your water delivered fertilizers in that way too, because you don't necessarily want to get your fertilizers on the foliage. So if you just water up from the bottom, you're going to fertilize your roots without compromising your foliage. Another thing that I keep forgetting to do every single time that I do this is that I actually will label my trays, the trays themselves, because I don't have plant labels right now, for one thing, but they also tend to get in the way of light and of visibility, so I can't see what's in them. So I want to be able to make a chart of everything that's in the tray. So what I'll do is I'll write a tray name on one side, and then all the way down the long side here, I'm going to number 1 through 8, because I know I can fit 8 rows of pods in here. And then on one of the sides, I'll do A through D, so because I can fit 4 columns. So I can do A, B, C, D, and then I can make a chart of everything that's in the tray based on its positioning in the chart. So let's say that we label this tray. I already have 4 trays. I have tray A, B, C, and D. So this will be tray E. And what I'll do is we'll have 1 through 8. So let's say that this pod right here in this front corner is going to be 8A. So in my little chart, I'll write down 8A, and that tells me, and write down whatever plant I put in it. And I'll kind of give you guys an example of how I've done that. We're almost done. 2 more pods, and then we can rinse off our hands and go get our seedlings to be transplanted. Huzzah! And we'll grab a Sharpie and we'll grab our seedlings. Another valuable tool that I use in my transplanting is just a simple skewer out of the kitchen, because it's going to make a much smaller hole, and I can just kind of poke it and wiggle it just a little bit to get that width and just kind of guide the root. Even I can use the bottom of the skewer to guide the root down the hole and kind of just very gently kind of pinch the soil back around it, instead of having to dig a big hole and worry about the plant falling over and all that. So I do have a mix of things that I'm doing for my personal garden and things that we're doing for the market, the farmer's market seed starts. So, and I have some that are for the farmer's market, but I only have 1 or 2 that are ready to be transplanted versus the rest that are still a little immature and not ready. So we're gonna work on probably some of our market plants, because those ones have the higher priority right now to get planted and to get developing. Okay, so I've got everything all separated out into my personal seedlings versus the market garden seedlings. And as you can see, I have a lot more stacks here in the personal, but there's fewer seeds per cup in here because I'm growing a wider variety but fewer numbers in my garden. So there's just more cups for the personal garden. So I have the Keystone resistant giant bell peppers and Corbaci peppers. And not all the Corbaci peppers were ready, so only 2 cups had some that were ready to go. And the Hinkle Hots peppers, there's not nearly as many in here as I would like to be ready, but hopefully we'll get some more of those coming out. And then we've got 2 different kinds of eggplants, the Fengwan purple and the Ediern purple striped. So we're gonna work on those. And I think that we will start with the Keystone resistant bell peppers, just because these guys are the biggest and they need to get in the soonest anyway, and there's the most of them. So what I'm going to do is I will count how many are ready to be transplanted. So it's 4, 3 is 7, plus 5 is 12, plus 3 in here is 15. So there's 15 of these peppers that are ready to go. So I can then kind of plan which pods I'm going to put them in, so we can poke our holes ahead of time. 1, 2. All right, now I did go ahead and poke 16 holes, just because they're in rows of 4 and I'm weird that way. So I have 4 completely poked pods that are ready to go. So I have 1 A through D, 2 A through D, 3 A through D, and then 4 A through C will be all the Keystone resistant giant bells. And we're going through 4C and just do a line down like that. So they're all labeled. I know what everything is that's in here. And now I can just open it. I just take the whole paper towel out and then just very, very, very carefully separate the 2 paper towels, because some of these roots have grown through them. And just very gently peel it off. The pepper plants are a little bit easier to deal with than the tomatoes were, because the tomato roots are a little bit thinner, a little bit more fragile, but they're also a bit more forgiving, because if you just go ahead and plant those suckers right up to the leaves, they'll make more roots. So, but these guys are sturdy enough that they can be pulled out. So I got one teensy little guy. And because it's curved, I'm going to use my skewer here to just push that little tiny root down a little bit, and then just push the dirt right around there. And I'll show you a close-up after I finish with this cup, since there are seedlings in here that aren't ready to be transplanted. I don't want to leave them out of here too long. So very carefully remove the next one. And this one's growing fairly upright, so I don't even really need the skewer to help me plant it. Just kind of stick it in the hole and then gently push the soil around the base. Okay, so there's the 3 that were in here that were ready to go. And we'll just kind of make sure the remaining seedlings are on there. Close that back up. And here you can see they're just real gently put in there. And it's really not that hard to do. It gets more challenging with things that have the thinner root systems and the more delicate plants in general. Peppers and tomatoes kind of tend to be a little bit more forgiving in my experience. And so you just kind of keep plugging along. Gently separate your paper towels. We did make the mistake of doing these with 2 layers of paper towels. And I've definitely learned, don't do that, because the roots will roll right through it and then you have a nice little tangle on your hands. But otherwise, these roots are fairly thick, and they're hardy and they're easy to pull through once you have just a single layer. So we have our little seedling. Poke it in the hole. Tuck it in. And then when we're done with this, what I'll do is I'll take a spray bottle and gently mist the tops of the soil, and then go ahead and do my from the bottom watering method to make sure that, since these guys have been in such high humidity in the cups, I want to make sure that they get plenty of moisture for their roots. See, this one does have a little bit of a longer root that just keeps wanting to curl up, so I just use the skewer, kind of tap it down so that it's straight. I'm not applying really hardly any pressure, just pushing that little bit down so that it's not coming back up out through the hole. Okay, so that is all of the bell pepper seedlings that we had, or the keystone resistant peppers. We do still have some corbachi peppers, which I will probably also put in this tray just because then it's all peppers in here. But let's see, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 in this one and 1 in this one that's ready. So we've only got 5. So we can just poke our 5 holes. Some of these do have surprisingly short roots, given how developed the foliage is, so I'm really curious to see how they'll do. This is entirely an experiment, doing this seed starter method, and hopefully it pays off. So far, the germination rate has been incredible, and the germination speed has been incredible. But I'm most curious about the transplanting and survival rates, just because many of these plants are they're not quite as sturdy because they haven't had to push up through the dirt in order to get to the light. So I'm just curious what kind of difference we'll see. And anything that I need to transplant, I need to replant, I will start in a traditional method and kind of gauge the difference on how fast it germinates. Okay, so that's all the peppers that I actually have here ready to transplant. So I can finish out the tray with probably some eggplants. This one's got all 5 eggplants ready to go. And these are the first eggplants that I've transplanted, so let's see how they do with the roots. They seem to be fairly sturdy little roots. They're small, but they seem pretty strong. Once I get one of these out of here, you can see how long that root actually is. There we go. So, see, this little bitty plant, it's got that long of a root just sitting in a cup. So we'll just kind of feed it down. Nice long root. This has been a very effective seed starting method. I am very curious to see how well they do in the transplant phase. And I'll actually show you guys the seeds that I just started in the cups here on camera with you guys two days ago? 2 days ago. They have already started to sprout. They're not like obvious yet. But it is pretty surprising how quick of a turnaround you get. Okay. Last one in the cup. Pre-drill these holes. See, I haven't got it all figured out, guys. I'm just learning as I go, but I'm taking you with me. Now, I've only been seriously gardening for the past, I think this is my 3rd year with my raised bed garden, and I love it. I used to garden in the ground, which just wasn't very successful for me because I had a small area, and as soon as you plant one zucchini, half your garden space is gone and you can't even walk through it. So it would just get to a point where I didn't want to go out there, and we have this horrible nut grass that is impossible to get rid of. So what we did is we decided to put raised beds in to try and curb the nut grass and the weeds and the lack of space and walkways. And so we put in the raised beds, and I have loved it ever since. It's been fantastic. It's accessible, it's easier, it's just everything about it has been life-changing, for at least my gardening life. Having the raised bed garden has really made a big difference to our family because the kids want to be out in it, they want to help, they go in there and snack on stuff. Like they love it just as much as I do, and they get excited when it's time to start planting the garden, and they want to be involved in planting the garden. And so it's been a really fun family thing for us to be able to have a garden that we can get to, that we can work. Last one. Nice baby root. Okay, so that is how we have transplanted now our entire tray full of peppers and eggplants. And it was a little time consuming, but it's not that bad, especially when you've got your whole tub of dirt right here and it's your entire station is all right in one spot. So now that we've got our tray all transplanted, I can go ahead and take you guys into the room where we have all of our plant starts, and I can show you the seeds that we actually started in the cups just a couple days ago. Alright, so these are the seeds that we started just a couple days ago. The peppers are not really doing anything yet. These are the lemon drop peppers that I'm sure those of you who can read, there you go. So the peppers haven't done much yet. I started these Mexican sour gherkins just a couple days ago, and you can see they're already starting to get some roots on them. I see roots on 3 out of 4 of them, which is a pretty good germination rate considering that they were overpacked due to a low germination rate, which is awesome. And then I have some little potato cucumbers for my daughter that she got for Christmas, and those both sprouted. But if we look down here at the Berkeley tie-dye tomatoes that we started, let's see. You can see just a little bit of a root coming out on some of those. And I mean, it's only been a couple of days, so that's incredible. Just how fast things germinate in here. And here's another cup of them. More little tiny roots starting in there. It's very cool. It's very exciting. Oh wow, here's one right here. That it's got a real root. Look at that. I mean, this is incredible. This was 2 days ago, guys. So, especially for like any homeschoolers or parents who have kids who want to learn about how seeds grow or how plants grow or how food grows, this is a really cool way to teach kids about germination because it's all right in front of their eyes. That's super cool. And then these are all of our tomatoes that we just saw the other day. They're still doing really well. This one, this pod has 2 in it because when I transplanted one, it was so sad looking, I thought, well, maybe I'll just plant another one in here because it may not survive. And it's doing fine. But you can see right there that this one is starting to get its primary leaves right there, right in the middle, which is super cool. Like, these things are just taking off and doing really well. I am probably gonna lose 1 or 2 out of all the ones that I've done, but I've got 100 plants in here, so I think losing 1 or 2 is a pretty good success rate overall. So you can see that we're starting to get some primary leaves coming in. Look at this one over here. Sorry if I'm making anybody motion sick here. But look, this one right here. Those are leaves. So exciting. Grow, little plants, grow. I love this part. This is my favorite time of year. Let's see, another plant with little leaves coming in. Super cool. I dig it. My favorite part of starting things from seed is watching them go from little seed to little seedling to little plant to big plant to food. And it's just cool. And you can see this is kind of our setup here. I have a 3-foot shelf with 4 shelves on it. And put the trays on those. Unfortunately, they don't fit 2 trays on each shelf. So I just have to make do with one, but I have some square trays that I may be able to put next to them. And I have a couple more shelves that I haven't set up anything yet. But it's coming along, and it's exciting. Thanks for joining me this morning as I've been transplanting all these new peppers and eggplants and looking at all the baby tomatoes. I hope that those of you who tuned in today to learn something did learn something, and I hope that those of you who came in just for a little bit of checking out what we're doing and why we're doing it, I hope that I can answer any questions that you have. Please let me know down in the comments, and thanks for joining me today, and I'll catch you guys later. Toodles!